Then I'll share. All right, so today's lesson is going to be on paraphrasing, and I'm going to make that smaller. Paraphrasing. We can use paraphrasing in our sentences, our paragraphs, our DQs, our essays, our dissertations, our capstone writing projects. And so I think this is a really useful micro lesson that I'm going to teach you today about paraphrasing. So the definition of paraphrasing that comes straight out of the APA manual is a paraphrase states another's ideas in your own words. And you'll notice that I did not paraphrase this definition. I took a direct quote and copied it straight out word for word from the manual. But in order to do that direct quote, I put quotation marks around it. And then I said in my parenthetical in-text citation that I found that on page 269. So interestingly enough, I did not paraphrase that, I direct quoted it. But we can paraphrase by doing it in our own words. And so I rewrote it in my own words, keeping that same sentiment. And I said, a paraphrase expresses someone else's idea using different words. Now, interestingly enough, I still needed to include the parenthetical in-text citation because I got that information from somewhere else. The only thing that I didn't have to do within the parentheses, it put the page number because I didn't copy it word for word. And then I have the corresponding reference to go with it. So you might be wondering, well, what is really the difference between paraphrasing, quoting, and summarizing? So let's start with quoting, because I just touched on that. Quoting is a word-for-word excerpt that comes from someone else's writing, and it must be enclosed in quotation marks. So we see this a lot when we are writing. We will read a research article. We'll think, wow, that author has some great things to say. I love what they wrote. I'm going to just pop it into my DQ word for word, or I'm going to pop it into an essay, that kind of thing. I will tell you this about APA formatting, or the APA manual. And in scholarly writing, we want to discourage you from doing an overabundance of direct quotes. We would like to encourage you to paraphrase and put it into your own words. But before we go into paraphrasing, let's talk about summarizing. So summarizing is when you do write someone else's idea in your own words. However, it's a shortened format of that. You're taking just the important ideas or the important points, and you're summarizing them. You're wrapping them up into a smaller summary. Similarly, paraphrasing is writing someone else's ideas in your own words. But with paraphrasing, you're looking at that direct quote and you're using roughly the same amount of detail from the original work, but you need to adjust the language so that it demonstrates your own comprehension and understanding, and then it should make it more understandable also to your reader. Now, with paraphrasing, quoting, and summarizing, you still must cite it in APA format so that you avoid plagiarism. And again, I like to say, if you got the information from somewhere, you need to cite it. So if you read it somewhere, you heard it somewhere, you need to cite. Now, why should you paraphrase? Well, paraphrasing will show that you understand what you read. It means that you know the idea well enough to explain them in your own words, which helps you learn and remember. So for those of you that are especially going to be defending in a dissertation, knowing what you read and comprehending that so that you can speak to your committee and your AQ reviewer when they're asking you to defend something will be really important. So knowing how to express it in your own words is key. Also, it's important to paraphrase someone else's work because it helps you to link ideas together. And it also shows that you're properly giving credit and respect to someone else's work. They worked hard to do their research, to get it published, and you don't want to steal their ideas and give yourself credit for it. You want to give credit and respect to them. Another really great aspect about paraphrasing is that it can turn the complicated language into simpler words. It just makes it easier to understand. I think all of us can attest to the fact that when we are reading a research article, sometimes it seems a little heady. You know, you're having to look up words, you don't know what the terminology is. It seems like someone broke out a thesaurus and they just, took off running with it. So paraphrasing can help you to make it more understandable just by using a more common language. And similarly, paraphrasing makes it your writing easier to read. Now, there are some common mistakes that can occur with paraphrasing. The first one is using just a couple of different synonyms without altering, excuse me, the structure of the original sentence. This is where we just kind of pick out one or two words, we pop a synonym in there, and it doesn't really change it all that much. That's actually a mistake in paraphrasing. Now you can go the other side of the spectrum and you can change the entire meaning of the original sentence, and then you haven't really kept the sentiment of what was written there. And that is a mistake in paraphrasing also. And then if we fail to add that parenthetical in-text citation and the corresponding reference, that is also a common mistake in paraphrasing. So here are my tips and tricks. And so this is being recorded and I will post it later. But if you want to take notes, this is sometimes a great place to do so. The writing from memory is probably my very favorite one. This is the one that I do whenever I'm doing research and I'm conducting a research study and I'm trying to get something published. I'll read the literature and then I'll cover it and then I'll write what I remember. A lot of times I will recommend to learners with the writing from memory is this. If you were to read something, and let's say now you're having lunch with your mom and your mom doesn't really understand that you're going through this dissertation process or your EDS, your specialist, process, and your mom asks you, well, what are you really doing? And then you just tell your mom in your own words, in that common language, what you've learned from what you've read. That is what I would recommend you write. So instead of copying everything from the research article, just write it in your own words. Another way to do that is to jot notes, and then you just write from scratch. The other thing that you can do is focus on the meaning. I know that it's really tempting to focus on the words, because a lot of times when you're reading the research article, you think, well, this author said it exactly the way I would say it. Try to go for the meaning and ask yourself, well, what is the original author saying? And write that in your own words. So it's kind of similar to the writing from memory, just kind of transcribe it into your own words. Another one is to use synonyms. And you're going to want to replace specific words from the original with synonyms. But you do have to be careful that if you break out that thesaurus, that you don't choose the synonym that doesn't really match up with the original meaning that is in the text. You can also change the structure of the sentence or reorder the ideas, and that helps it to become distinct from the original. The one thing you'll want to caution yourself on with this is that you don't start writing in passive voice. And if you don't know about passive voice, I know that on Dr. Marquette's YouTube channel, there's a fantastic video on, I think it's 5 tips to eliminate passive voice. And then the other one is called patch writing. And patch writing is where you only change just a tiny little bit here and there, and it kind of just looks like patchwork. And this is especially noticeable to your professors, perhaps your chair, your committee members. They're looking at it and they're more familiar and they're thinking, wow, that doesn't sound like what my learner, how my learner usually writes. It seems patchy. So you'll want to avoid the patch writing. So for practice, I was thinking that what we could do is look at a tiny little piece of literature that we're all familiar with, and that is the preamble to the Constitution. And for those of us who grew up in the 70s, we remember Schoolhouse Rock, and I bet right now you could sing the song in your head. But here is the preamble. It says, We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. So the way that I'd like to practice would be to use the chat function. And I would like you to share in the chat, if you're so bold to do so, how would you take this first part of the preamble? It says, in order to form a more perfect union. And how would you rephrase that? So I'll give you a moment to think. I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute so that I can go to the chat. So what would you do for that? And I know a lot of you are thinking, yeah, but it's already perfect the way it is. The wording is like awesome, which it is, but we need to try to paraphrase it. So think about my tips and tricks. What is the meaning behind that? So again, in order to form a more perfect union. What do you think that means? Okay, we have one. Thank you, Christina. The goal is to be stronger and have unity. Ooh, good. Another one, Fatima, thank you. To continuously improve the current existing union. Nice. Anybody else want to give it a try? Oh, to establish more of an alliance. Thank you, Sally. All right, I'll share screen again. Oh, we've got another one. Thanks, Alice. An effort to establish stronger unity. Great. Okay, I'm going to go back to my, I put to create a better country. So I kept mine pretty simple. How about establish justice? So let's go back to the chat. What do you think that means, to establish justice? So again, it's only 2 words, and they are great, strong words. But to avoid a direct quote, how could you write it in your own words? Nicole says to create a fair system. I like that. Fatima, define our standard of judgment. Nice. Very good. Ooh, I like that, Winetta. Protect equality. Yeah. All right, I'll go back to screen share. We'll get to the next one. Hang on, let's see. All right, I said set up fairness for all people. Our next one, ensure domestic tranquility. Ensure domestic tranquility. All right, let's go to the chat. Create peace within the nation. That's a good one. Real similar. Promote peace in our country. Yep. Guarantee peace in our country. Awesome. Yeah, I think, see, we're all getting the sentiment from the original, right? We're starting to see that, like the meaning behind it. Okay, let me go back now. And let's see what I wrote. Yep, I wrote promote peace in our country. All right, how about the next one? Provide for the common defense. And I know it looks like I spelled defense wrong. However, that's how it is in the original. So what do you think that means? Provide for the common defense. Ah, yep. Ensure the country is protected. Okay, good one, Brian. Protection for all. Mm-hmm. Defends one. Good. See, we're thinking along the same lines. We're getting the meaning behind it, but we're avoiding using the exact quote. All right, let's go to the next one. Share. What did I have? I said secure the nation's safety, so I used the word safety. How about promote the general welfare? Promote the general welfare. Like, what does that mean? So we have promote the general welfare. Okay, but so Christina, that's an exact quote, so we can't use that one. Oh, she's like, darn it anyway.
Sorry about that. Triggering me.
Put some quotes around it. All right, we've got encourage the well-being of everyone. Okay, that's a good one. Well-being is a really good term. Anybody else want to give it a try? What does that mean? Promote the general welfare. Ah, prosperity. Okay. I think that word actually comes up in the next one. Encourage or provide for the well-being. Nicole says, I like prosperity. Mm-hmm. Are you guys kind of finding, though, that to paraphrase, it takes some work, doesn't it? Like, you have to like really start thinking. It's not quick. All right, let me go back. And I wrote, encourage the well-being of all citizens. All right, and then the last one is secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. All right, what does that mean? Fatima, fulfill our own dreams. Oh, I like this already. And ensure the ability of future generations to do the same. Yes. So that covers self and the future generations. That's a really good one. Anybody else want to take a try at this one? All right, I'll go ahead and share. I think this one is a harder one. And I wrote ensure the freedoms for ourselves and future generations. So I took the word liberty and used the word freedoms. All right, well done. Okay, there is a really good resource that I'm going to give you. So like if you want to do extra practice, I'm going to share a fantastic source with you. This comes from the APA style blog. I don't know if that worked. Did that not work? The APA style blog really does align perfectly with the APA manual, and they have tons and tons of resources. So let's say you're wondering about, you know, APA level headings. You're not sure, is this a level 1, a level 2, a level 3? Do I italicize it? Do I bold it? That kind of thing. You can go to the APA style blog and that will work fabulously. Can I have somebody try that? I put that link in the chat. Can someone tell me if that actually worked? Oh, cool. Thank you. Very, very good. All righty. The next thing I have is I just want to ask if there are any questions that anybody has before I share a few other resources with you. So this is just a time to unmute, but I would like it if we could keep the topic of questions on paraphrasing instead of all sorts of other things, because I have some resources that I'm going to give you for that in a few minutes. So questions for paraphrasing. And let's do cameras, so we can see faces, and unmute so that we can feel like we're building that community that Dr. Marquette likes to talk about. So any questions I can answer after my little micro lesson.
I don't have any questions. I just think it's going to take some time to get used to being more concise in my writing.
Yes, and that's a really good point that you bring up, Nicole. Doctoral writing and even capstone writing for our EDS learners, it does need to be concise. We tend to, I think, as writers, and we think if we're scholarly, we're supposed to be real verbose and write these long, lengthy, sentences. And then I have this issue. I come from an English teacher background. I've got a master's in English. And so I'm always wanting to write flowery. I want it to be, and no, it's just like, no, write simple sentences. And I'm like, well, that's so boring. That's what we need. Simple, concise sentences. I mean, I've told learners before, I don't want to see any more than 10 words in a sentence, because I'll see sentences that are upwards of 30, 35 words long, and it's too much. So Nicole, you bring up a really good point about being concise, and we can do that in our paraphrasing and just make simple sentences. Any other comments or questions?
I'll piggyback off of Nicole. That's definitely been a struggle for myself. I talk a lot. I'm from the South, even though I live in Arizona. We talk a lot. Sometimes in the South, we actually talk and write. We write how we speak. So there's a lot of fluff in there. Even as an administrator, there's just so much fluff in because you never know how someone may take whatever you're sharing or whatever you're saying to them. So you fluff a lot. So I tend to fluff a lot, even with writing. So that's definitely been a struggle for me. I never would have imagined me having to struggle with just writing, especially because usually it's, write more, write more, write more, but having to be concise and write less, that has definitely been a game changer for me and a learning curve.
Yeah. I love that you use the word fluff, because that's sometimes a comment that I'll put, eliminate the fluff and stuff, and so, yeah, it is definitely a challenge. I agree. Because it's just a different way of writing. And again, I think it's because we have this perception that we think scholarly writing needs to be a certain way. We've got this stereotype of the writing. And especially in the dissertation, it's very repetitive and very concise. Other comments or questions? Okay, I have some sources, some other things that I can give you. I'll put them into the chat. There is going to be, I sometimes work with a fellow, like a colleague of mine. Her name is Dr. Chavez, and we like to do what we call a Q&A live session. So we're going to have a live session on Monday, the 24th. It's at 4 o'clock Arizona time, which is 7 o'clock Eastern time. There's a Zoom link there. And it's more like open, like today with questions, I just want it to be more on like paraphrasing. This would be anything goes. So if you've got questions about, writing or the dissertation process or the EDS process, that kind of thing, we'll try to answer as best we can. The two of us are both there at the same time, so we can ping off of each other. She teaches content classes, same as I do. And so we invite learners to attend that and just ask, feel comfortable just chatting that way. We also have in there a little questionnaire. It's anonymous. That way we can prep in advance. So if you don't necessarily, if you want to come, but you don't feel comfortable asking the question, in the group like this, put it in that little anonymous questionnaire and we'll have that ready to go in advance and be able to prep for that. So there's that for you. So if you think that's something of interest, please go ahead and put that, take that from the chat and go stick it somewhere else where you're going to find it. And then I've got 3 other things. I do have a little YouTube channel. I only have like 13 videos, and they're, sometimes they're like my template videos for my learners to write their essays. So I put those in there, and then I also put these writing support lessons in there. I did put Dr. Marquette's YouTube channel. He's got like tons of stuff. I use those in my own classes and have my learners respond to those because he's been doing this for much longer and has fantastic resources. And then just today, the very last one, it's called Lopestream. And that just came into an email about 30 minutes ago. And so I think Dr. Marquette at the beginning was talking about the DC network, and there are going to be all these wonderful resources. And so that last one that I just put in there is this Lopestream. I only had a few minutes to start looking it over. It looks fantastic. So, go to that, bookmark it, and then you'll have something that you can refer to at another time if you needed help with something. And then I'll just put this last one up. I'll share the screen one last time. So this is pretty much concluding my micro lesson on paraphrasing and giving you some other resources. I do these on the 2nd Thursday of every month. So the next one is scheduled for the 11th of July at 4 o'clock Arizona time. If you found this helpful, I would love to see you again, and I would appreciate it if you would invite your fellow classmates, because like to help as many learners as possible to feel like they are getting up to speed in their writing and finding ways to be successful. So I'll go ahead and